Hi, hello. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to the first Pointerpro Academy webinar of 2024. The Pointerpro Academy will be a weekly webinar series where every week someone else from the Pointerpro team will talk about a topic that they are familiar with. Today's topic is lead generation for non-marketeers. I say, let's dive right in. Now, first off, who am I? I am Nigel. I'm the performance marketeer here at Pointerpro. And as a performance marketeer, it's basically my job to make sure that there are enough leads coming in to keep our sales team occupied. So I can say that I do know a thing or two about marketing and lead generation in specific. Now, I do understand everyone's level of marketing, especially in this webinar, will be different. If after this webinar you feel that you could use some extra help with your current lead generation efforts, feel free to reach out to my email address. It's right there. It's nigel.lindeman@pointerpro.com, and then we can set up a small meeting where I can go through everything. Just to make sure, if you send me an email, mention Pointerpro Academy in the subject line, so I know where you are, where we know each other from, because I do get a lot of emails. Why are we doing this, or why are we organizing this webinar? I've received messages from both our sales and our support colleagues that Pointerpro is often used as a lead generation tool. Now, the people who are using our tool are not always marketing professionals, and they're also not always getting the number of responses or the results that they expected. Either they struggle to get respondents all the way through the end of their quiz, or they're just not seeing any responses at all. Now, while our software is definitely capable to be used in a lead generation context, it's hard to make it work if the lead generation fundamentals aren't really in place. And that's what I really want to cover in this webinar. So at the end, you feel like a bit more comfortable with using Pointerpro or any other assessment software as part of your lead gen efforts. What will we cover today? I will start with a bit of theory. I'll give you a short introduction into the magnificent or the magical world of lead generation. Next, we'll put the theory into practice by showing you a couple of lead magnet examples and lead capture examples. I will cover what both of those items are in the intro. After that, we'll dive into lead magnet promotion. So if you are getting less responses than you were expecting, I think this part might be interesting to you. And then we'll follow that up with some tips and tricks to optimize your lead generation, both if you're just starting with lead generation or if you already have something in place. I have some tips and tricks for both scenarios. I will end with some Q&A. So first up, lead generation 101. What is lead generation? Now, I found this beautiful definition in the Oxford Dictionary that says that lead generation is the action or process of identifying and cultivating potential customers for a business's products or services. It's a bit of a definition that says a lot and nothing at the same time, in my opinion. If I had to define lead generation myself, especially digital lead generation, I would say that lead generation is the process of generating interest in your product or service with the goal of eventually turning that interest into a sales. And then for digital marketing, this typically involves collecting contact information. And the most important bit there is a valid email address. The main difference between my definition and Oxford's is that mine really focuses on sparking interest, whereas the Oxford definition focuses more on pushing people to making a sale or making a purchase. Nowadays, I think lead generation is a lot less direct. It's not just about selling or having people buying stuff. I mean, in the end, of course, customers pay the bills and not leads. But it's also more about creating awareness on pain points or questions that your leads might have. Why? Because in general, if we would take 100 potential customers, at any given time, there are most likely only 5 that really need or want to buy from you today or at any given time. We call these the low-hanging fruit, and sales usually love them. For these people, we have the book a demo, we have the sales calls, we have the free trials. But for the 95 others, we need a bit more convincing. And it's these people where we need to spark a bit of interest in what we have to say and what we have to offer. And that's why lead magnets are so important. Now, what is a lead magnet? A lead magnet is a free goodie offered to website visitors in exchange for their contact information. This can be a discount code. Now, discount codes are mostly used in a B2C context where you just leave your email address in exchange for a 10 or 15% discount on your first purchase. Other examples are white papers, ebooks, but also calculators, assessments with or without a personalized PDF report. And then next to the lead magnets, you have the lead capture form or lead capture pages. Basically, to gain access to the lead magnet, a customer or visitor must provide their name and email address. Most often, those are the two key items that you want in order to gain to download the ebook to get to a report. Now let's turn that theory into a bit of more. Let's show you a couple of examples that will illustrate this theory. The first one is the classic ebook. This is one from Search Engine Journal. It's a study. I think this is pretty much the oldest lead magnet in the book. I feel nowadays they're not that sexy anymore, but they still work well, especially when you are a leader in a certain niche, or as is the case here, it's research that you do every year. Search Engine Journal has done this type of content for, I think, almost over a decade now. So they know what they're doing and they keep building on it because they know it works for them. Adobe, they do it the other way around. So instead of offering access to the results of a study, they offer respondents a chance to take part in it. The benefit here is, of course, that you can simply ask the email address during or in the survey and then use that as an excuse to email them later with results. But of course, nothing prohibits you from sending other types of content over to them as well. The third example is one from, I think it was fitness supplements. It's just an example to show you that lead magnets can work in any type of business. You might be thinking, yeah, I don't think this is applicable for me. Well, if you look at, it might take some creativity, but if you look at it from the right angle, I think there are lead magnets in any type of business or service. The nice thing about this quiz is that it's a combination of both lead generation and guided selling combined in one simple quiz. So in exchange for your email address, you get personalized product recommendations. I've tried this one. It had an example question was, what kind of diet are you on? So if you're on a vegan diet, obviously the recommendations that you'll get at the end are also vegan. The next example is one built with our software, with Pointerpro. What's unique here is that it's a digital IQ test by Bootcamp Digital, and it combines two lead magnets at the same time. We have a short 5-minute version and then a longer 30-minute or 77 complete test. Again, at the end, you'll have your digital IQ score and a personalized training recommendations or what kind of course or training you can follow. I think this also shows a bit of the mismatch that exists between the business or us on the one hand and the leads on the other hand. We want to ask a lot of great and interesting questions, but the lead is only willing to spend so much time on completing any type of test or quiz. Of course, if you have a longer and a short one, they can take the short one first. If they find that it's something that they're actually interested in or want to learn more about, they can set some time apart and then they can do the longer version at a later point in time. This is an example from Neil Patel. He's a marketing guru. So if you're starting out in marketing or want to learn more about the marketing basics, I highly recommend checking his website. It's neilpatel.com. This is one of the lead magnets that are on his website. If you do visit his website, you'll see that he uses this technique all over the place. There are a lot of lead magnets there. It's also a bit of a sneaky one, this one, because it also doubles as a lead capture form as people fill in this step-by-step quiz, if you will. You already have to give some personal information away just to complete it. In this case, it's a website URL, which he then can use to find your company name and what kind of industry that you're in. I think this is one of the main strengths of using an assessment or a quiz, because people want to learn something about themselves or about their business. They want to improve themselves. And I think maybe even they're already thinking that they're doing great, that will still trigger them to fill in these type of tests, these type of quizzes. The last one is one with a familiar face on it. This is one that we used within Pointerpro ourselves. At the bottom, you see that we don't ask for any information on the lead. Now, why did we do it? And does it still count as lead generation then? I think it still does. We didn't ask for any personal information because we wanted to showcase our product. We wanted people to experience the assessment. We wanted people to download the personalized report without any strings attached. In a way, it was kind of like getting a free sample in the supermarket. We just wanted people to experience our product. But of course, even though we didn't ask for anything up front, you should always still have some route that people can take to convert, whether it's by adding links or buttons to your lead magnet or your piece of content, so people can still book a demo, still take the next step once they're ready. And that's exactly what we did. In the report tied to this assessment, there's a call to action where we asked them if they're interested in building their own assessments and report. And of course, once they click that button, they do have to fill in a little bit more information for our sales team to pursue them then, to allow our sales team to pursue them then. Now, those were the lead magnet examples. Now we're moving on to the lead capture examples. We now have the interest of our lead. It's time to convert them, if you will. I will show you two examples. I will show you a bad one and a good one. We'll kick it off with the bad one. Now, as you can see on the right-hand side, there are a lot of fields to fill in for what is a rather simple ebook on a 5-point checklist. I don't think not many people will fill in all these fields. There's simply too many. I'll quickly go over all of them and briefly explain why, in my opinion, you would consider asking or not asking certain questions. I think the first one, the email address, I think that one makes total sense. I would maybe change it to a company email address or a work email address, just to make sure that you get less generic email addresses, less Gmails, less Yahoo emails. Then you have first name, last name. Again, there's no issue with that. What I would do, however, is start with first name, last name, and then ask for the company email, because that's kind of how it works in any type of form. That's what people are used to. That's what we see with e-commerce as well. And it's important to keep the same flow that people or leads are acquainted to, and not just switch it up because you want to. Company email, if you do ask for a work email or company email address, I think it's quite easy to fetch the company name from that email. So I would not necessarily ask this. Job title, given this piece of this lead magnet specifically, I would not ask for a job title because I expect 80 to 90% will be marketeers or people active in the marketing space. Country, there's no issue with asking that. If you are a global company, if you have departments or people working across the globe for a company, it makes sense to ask it. If you're only active in one single country or mainly active in one country, then you might not want to add that as a question. Phone number, I feel for this type of lead magnet, that's a bit more top of funnel, that's a bit more non-commercial. That phone number is not really required here. I think I would not ask it. It's something to ask when you want to book a demo, when you want to offer a demo, for example, then asking for a phone number makes more sense. And then the last three questions, number of employees, what's your annual marketing spend? I think those questions are also not really relevant here. It's too much of a detailed question to ask at this point. Whether or not they sell to B2B, B2C, or both, I think that could be relevant, because that would allow you to tweak your follow-up emails to only send content, only send emails about B2B once they indicate that that's the space that they're selling to. Then we have the second one, what I would consider a good lead capture example. We have only three fields, well, two fields, three questions: first name, email, and then topic of interest. The benefit here is that you only ask what you need at this point, and you at the same time can already segment your leads. If they indicate that they're interested in SEO or paid media or combination of these four, then you know in your follow-up emails you have to only send them topics that they've indicated. There's also a small GDPR, I think, checkbox there to allow them to send you their newsletter as well. It's fine to do it, small check. There's no real issue there. Next step, where to promote your lead magnet. So we have our lead magnet in place, we have our lead capture in place. Now, how do we make sure that enough people see our lead magnets and actually have access to them? The first item is the website. Mark is also one of our customers. He puts it front and center on his homepage. It's very hard to miss it. I think this is, of course, not a bad idea, but of course, I understand not everybody is willing to put this type of content front and center on their homepage. I think there may be more important things that you want to put there. Then the second option would be to put it in your navigation. So Mark did it here as well. On top, you see the free self-assessment on the top right corner. If you have an assessment, a quiz, a calculator that you want to promote on your website, I think putting it in your navigation is a great first step. If you're still hesitant to do that, then the final option would be to put it in with a call to action in your blog post. Ideally, this works when you have a sizable blog. So if you have a couple of hundred, maybe a couple of thousand visitors each month, then that can work. If you have a smaller blog or you're not blogging at all, then I would suggest adding it to your navigation as a first step. Once that is sorted, the second one are pop-ups. Now, pop-ups have their fair share of fans and haters. I personally don't really have any issue with pop-ups as long as they are not too intrusive. I feel slide-in pop-ups that appear on the left or the right side of the screen are perfect. Page takeovers, for example, things that pop up when you scroll, I don't think those are the way to go. Another option that you could try are exit intent pop-ups. So exit intent pop-ups are pop-ups that appear when someone moves their mouse or their cursor outside of the page. I think it's a great last-ditch effort to collect some information on the website visitor. I think it's a good spot to put your secondary or non-commercial lead magnets. So for example, when someone does not sign up for a webinar or maybe does not convert on your demo page, then putting a less commercial lead magnet there to catch at least some information really couldn't harm anyone. Next up, we have social media. Again, maybe not the most crazy idea, but I do feel that social media is not really optimally used in combination with lead magnets or from a lead gen perspective in general. A few tips if you consider using social media. First off is make sure that you use the same social media as your leads. So for B2B, that often means LinkedIn. For B2C or e-commerce, that's more likely going to be Instagram or TikTok. Second pointer is to post consistently. You cannot just build a lead magnet, post about it once and expect to see incredible results. Third suggestion is to use personal pages and not use company pages. Company pages are dead. Nowadays, it's all about thought leadership. It's all about personal branding. So I would leverage your own profile instead of your company page, or maybe the profile of someone within your company that you want to establish as a thought leader. And it's also important to do just more than share lead magnets. It's important to engage with other profiles. It's important to do other types of posts as well. And tying it back to the example that I've shared here, I think what Kevin does well here is he does not share a link to his lead magnet. Instead, he just shares an image and he asks for people to send him a DM. Why does he do it this way? If you share a URL in your social media posts, you almost always get punished by social media. In general, they don't like it when you drive traffic away from their platform. They want people to keep using Instagram. They want people to stay on LinkedIn. That's why it just works with an image. You have to send him a DM and then you get the lead magnet. Of course, once you send him a DM, he has your LinkedIn profile, which he would then consider a lead, and he has your information. He also asks you to like his post and leave a comment. Now, this doesn't really have anything to do with lead generation. I think this is all about boosting engagement. By having people comment, that will make sure that everyone who is following the guy that comments also sees this post. So you get a lot more eyeballs on your content. I think it's a rather simple trick just to get a bit more engagement that you can apply as well. And the final tactic that I'm going to share today, it's a bit more advanced. You see it with e-commerce all the time. Let's say you're browsing for a watch or maybe a pair of shoes. You purchase or maybe don't purchase, you just leave, and then the next day all of a sudden you see this watch or you see the pair of shoes all over the place online. Is it magic? Is it voodoo? Not really. Basically what you do is you put a Facebook, a LinkedIn or a Google Pixel on your website. Someone visits your product page or maybe a blog post or your pricing page, and then later when they leave, you can then retarget them with your lead magnets. Ideally, these lead magnets are, again, a little bit less commercial. I think it's a great strategy to stay top of mind and to lure them back. But it's important to know that retargeting is not a free strategy. So putting the pixel on your website, of course, that's free. But if you want to show your message on social media, you're going to have to run some retargeting ad campaigns. And because of that reason, I do not recommend it as a beginner strategy. But I think it's a nice one if you have some spare budget to try as well. We have our lead magnets, we have our lead capture forms, we know how to promote our lead magnets. Now let's share some tips and tricks to optimize your lead generation. The first set of tips are a bit more from a strategy perspective. The first one is understanding your customers' pain points, and then more specifically, actually talking to your customers. I think talking to your customers is a bit of a lost art. I think a lot of the attendees here in this webinar actually have the advantage here because you are not full-time marketeers. You do spend time talking to customers maybe every single day. Understanding these pain points will make it easier to build valuable content that is really tailored to solve the problems that they mention. The conversations that you have will also help you write content in a language that your leads understands. I think marketeers, we have a tendency to use a lot of fancy buzzwords, which is not something that a lead always likes as much as we marketeers do. So we have our content now. The next step is to create an enticing lead magnet. I think it's a bit easier said than done. There are so many types of lead magnets that you can try. I do feel that ebooks and white papers have lost most of their value. I don't think that anyone still reads a 50-page ebook in this day and age. People prefer scannable content. People prefer personalized content, and leads will much rather have something with, for example, 5 tips that are highly relevant to them than 50 generic tips that doesn't really mean anything to them, maybe doesn't even apply to them. The advantage also with calculators or audits or scans is not only do they engage, not only do they have some sort of interaction, but if you go that route as an added bonus, you can also easier segment your leads and then personalize first of the experience and the assessment itself, but also later on in your emails, in any sort of follow-up communication that you have planned, you can really personalize it based on what they've answered. If you go that way, it will also be easier to convert them to a paying customer further down the line. The second set of tips that I want to share are a bit more practical. So the first one were more strategic, or when you're still starting out. Let's say you already have an assessment. Let's say you already have a lead magnet or a lead capture form. Here are some other tips and tricks that you might want to consider. The first one, fewer questions equals more completions. Yeah, I think this is maybe, you might be thinking, yeah, this is a no-brainer. But when I look at some assessments, when I look at certain quizzes, I see people like to ask a lot of questions. They think every question is important, is relevant. What I always do is, my go-to reasoning is always that I will ask myself, what will I do with the answer to this specific question? Can I use it to personalize anything? Can I make my content more relevant for my leads? Can I calculate anything with this answer? If the answer is no, then I will skip the question. If the answer is yes, then I will of course keep it in. Same with form fields. There I would always ask myself, do I need this information at this point in time? So we've seen the bad lead capture example. There were just simply too many fields that were not really necessary for us to already know, or from a business to already know. And then based on that assessment, I would cut out as many form field questions as possible. Once we've cut off all the fat, there are still some other tricks that we can use. The first one is question logic. This is mostly applicable when you're trying to use a quiz or an assessment or a calculator. It's using question logic, also called conditional branching or maybe skip logic. What we do here is we hide or we skip certain questions based on previous answers. So for example, if you ask someone if they own a car and the answer is no, you will skip all the questions that talk about cars later on in the assessment. Piping is another feature that is quite similar, but here you will feed answers to previous questions in follow-up questions. So for example, you ask, what's your favorite food? The answer pizza. Then the follow-up question will use that answer, pizza, as a variable, and it will ask you, why do you like pizza? If you answer pasta, it will say, why do you like pasta? If you would add all these different questions, you would need a lot of question logic to set up if this, then that. With piping, it just takes the answer from the first question and you only have one follow-up question. That way you can significantly reduce the number of questions that you need in general in your assessment. Finally, for the forms, you can use multi-step forms. This is, for example, you still want to ask 8 different form fields. Then I would consider using multi-step forms where you would ask for 4 questions on the first screen and another 4 on the second. It makes it a little bit more digestible for your leads. It makes it easier to complete it after all. Now, there are other tips on how to improve your lead gen quizzes and assessments, but for those, I highly recommend the Pointerpro Academy. On February 1st, my lovely colleague Nata will teach you everything you need to know on how to master your assessment flow. Stay tuned for that link in, I think, a couple of weeks. Now we have our tips. We have how to promote our lead magnets. We have our lead magnets in place. We have our lead capture in place. Are we done? Well, not quite. Here's what to do next. First off, you have to make sure that there is a next step. It's not because someone downloads your ebook that your lead generation process is complete. There needs to be a next step because they are not a customer yet. And as long as they are not a customer, there should be next steps that they can take. Having call to actions in your lead magnet is an obvious one, whether it's in your assessment, whether it's in your ebook or your personalized PDF report. Make sure that there's other content that they can download. Make sure that there are other pages that they can click through to, or make sure that there's access to a demo if they're ready to buy, that they obviously can move on and schedule that. And then why email addresses are so important is because we like emails, especially sending emails as marketeers. In this case, I've taken an example from content.io. What they've done is they've used the information that they had to personalize the subject lines. They've used my first name, they've used Pointerpro, the company name. They've also used emails to inform me on other lead magnets that they have, such as their TCO calculator, all items to keep me, to keep content.ai on top of my mind and to keep me on the loop on their offering. Now they have maybe gone a bit overboard by sending me 6 emails in 2 weeks. You could send a couple of emails in the first week after someone filled in one of your lead magnets, but after that I would limit myself to maybe sending just 1 email a week, only if you have something relevant to say. And of course, make sure that you only send an email when you have there, of course, explicit permission to do so. And there you have it, the essentials on lead generation for non-marketeers. I think there might be a couple of questions. If you have any, to let me know. I see a question from Ina. How do you know if a lead is a good one? There are different ways to do this. I think most businesses have some sort of lead qualification in place. Now, of course, for top of funnel or for non-commercial lead magnets, this will be less important. If they book a demo, of course, you'll want to ask for certain, more detailed information. And then it's important to know your target audience beforehand and see if or when this lead matches with that target audience. That we call in lead generation, we call that lead qualification. If someone is exactly like your target audience, then they'll definitely be a good one. If they are from a country that you know is traditionally not that well converting, if they have any other signals, for example, if they're a student, I have nothing against students, but they usually don't have any money to purchase your product, then again, these will be poor leads. Another question that I see here from Christina: is it necessary to block Gmails and only accept company emails? And is that possible with Pointerpro? I think it is possible with Pointerpro to block out certain domains. Whether or not it is necessary to block them depends on the type of business that you're in. I think for B2B, it's a valid strategy, just to make sure there are not any spammy leads coming in. For B2C, it's a bit harder because you're dealing with regular users, regular people who will not be purchasing any product with their company email. At least that's not what I would do. Question from Sean: is there an ideal number of questions to ask in the lead form? I think, well, ideal, it's case by case, and you can argue for 8. With the right reasoning, 8 is acceptable, but in general, I would limit myself to somewhere between 4 and 6. I think with 6 demographic or personal questions, you can already go a very long way. And then I have one more from Jürgen. Is it a good idea to run ads on social media for the lead magnet? But if it's a good idea or not, I think the first question is, do you have the budget for it? If you have some budget, I think it's a nice experiment to run. But it will be, I would definitely experiment with it. Try different lead magnets, try different ad text, not just run one ad, because there's very little to learn from that. And then you can optimize as you go. Another question that I see here is from Emily. Is there an integration with CRM for the lead form? So can you integrate your lead form with your CRM? Emily uses Pipedrive. Definitely. With Pointerpro specifically, you can use Zapier, you can use Make. We also have the Pointerpro API. That's pretty, not easy, but it's the best way to connect your lead forms to your CRM. CRM standing for like customer relationship management tool. Joey asks, as an individual consultant, what kind of lead magnets can I offer? Any recommendations? Depends on the type of business that you're in. Consulting can go on there's a wide range of consultants, of course. I would look at the products that you're offering, the trainings that you're offering, or the coachings that you're offering, and start from that. What issues could someone be having or experiencing that they might want to look into your kind of service, and turn that into a lead magnet. Hannah asks, can Pointerpro be used both for a lead magnet and a lead form? yes, we have all the different question types to build assessments and quizzes, calculators or scans, and we also have form field questions where you can ask for personal information. Do you recommend, Sally asks, do you recommend embedding a Pointerpro survey in your own website versus an external link to take them straight to Pointerpro? That's a good question. I think you can go both ways. I think embedding on your own website is maybe the better way to go, because then they stay within a familiar environment. They stay on your website, so you don't need another page, you don't need another tab to open up. But of course, if you lay out, well, if it doesn't really fit with the rest of your website, then I guess adding an external link is also a valid option. But if I had to choose, I would embed it. I don't see any other questions popping up. You're welcome, Sally. You're welcome. Again, if you have any lead generation questions still for me, please by all means reach out to nigel.lindeman@pointerpro.com. Don't forget to mention Pointerpro Academy in the subject line, and then we can set up a one-on-one meeting where I can go over your current lead generation processes and see if there's anything that we can tweak or tune. And then, of course, don't forget to tune in to next week's webinar, where my amazing colleague Bruno will teach you everything you need to know about aggregate reports, which is the latest and greatest new feature that we offer. It's perfect for everyone who wants to work with wants to create reports with multiple data sets, such as 360 assessments. I hope to see you all there, and I wish you a very nice rest of your day. Bye-bye.